Buddy, you are back.
We're back. We're back. They can't stop us.
Good to see you, mate.
Good to see you too. It's been a very long time.
It has been a long time. Anyway, let's start it right. You wanna
Start with the cheers? Okay, yes.
What's
We've got to
happening?
do this right. Somebody has told me, a little bird has told me, that you wanted to talk about a good friend of mine. Actually, well,
I didn't even know. I didn't know you had friends.
Can't say I know him personally, but as you can see behind me, today we are going to talk about Kazushi Sakuraba.
To Kazushi, mate.
To Kazushi, well, here, I brought you a little gift for everybody at home. Here we go. We got the drinks. We got the drinks. I made personalized only for MMA Live TV.
Damn, son.
Hey, man,
Can't say it.
have a beer on the house.
Shit. I gotta check this shit out.
Let's talk about Sakuraba. Let's talk about his Kimura. Let's talk about all the Gracies he defeated
All right.
in Japan. Let's
turn
talk
it down.
about Saku.
All right, man. This is not half bad. I mean, it tastes like something I know, but
Nah, you wouldn't know it, man. You wouldn't know it. Special brew, protein water liquor, Kazushi Sakuraba. It's gonna show you right, man. Show you right.
All right, man. Let's talk about the man, the myth and legend. I know that when you came on last year, I've just lost track of time. We had let's call it an intro, right? Mm-hmm. An introductory chat. Since then, things have happened. I've gotten into Brazilian.
See, it's that protein water liquor kicking in, my friend.
I've got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, BJJ. What happens if I just say I got into Jiu-Jitsu? It's not the same, right? You've got to say
Two different things.
You've got to say BJJ.
BJJ.
Man,
Brasileiro.
apart from the tongue twisters that happen when you say, yeah, I do BJJ.
So far, so good.
So far,
how many months you been doing it now? It's been quite a while, hasn't it?
I'd say we're
6 months?
touching a year at the moment.
Almost a year.
Almost a year.
That's
yeah,
good,
yeah.
man. That's really good.
It's good. No, it's great. Close to 4 to 5 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
It's something to do during the pandemic, but I think when you do a martial art, apart from just talking about it, it really does open your eyes. So
Yeah, I'm very happy that you did that.
nowhere near to being a fighter or anything, but it's good. It's good just being in the environment, knowing what it actually feels like to wake up early and train and all that.
And do you feel now when you start watching the fights on TV, you see it differently, or
Hell yeah.
the experience of watching it is different?
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
I've always felt that without sounding like a dick, I've always felt that I've seen the fights a little bit more differently anyway, from a pure casual perspective. But what I really appreciate now is grappling. I love hugging people.
Yep.
Love hugging people.
Yep. Like
Strangulation
you
is
said,
great.
it was something for you to do during the pandemic. And what's better in a pandemic than getting rid of social distancing and getting close quarters with somebody?
Recreational hugging. I mean,
Yeah.
if on your own accord you're waking up early in the morning to strangle people, you got screws a little bit loose. I tell people that I got into jiu-jitsu, and the first thing they say is, "Great, when?" During the pandemic. What?
What's the people don't want to be friends no more?
No, it's not that. It's just that it's a weird thing, right? Like,
No, man, something to do.
yeah, I guess so.
Gotta
I guess
keep
so.
yourself busy.
Anyway, mate, this is not about me. Look, before we begin, guys, subscribe to the channel. It's gonna pop. Like, it's gonna happen. Australian Joe
I mean, that's
Rogan.
what I'm here for. You brought me here clearly because you need the ratings. The ratings are going to go through the roof.
We need.
People love Sakuraba,
Yep.
and we're going to discuss it. So have you gone back over the last year and have you started watching some of his fights like I asked?
I've watched.
Did you do what I said?
The man did listen.
Yeah.
There's always a subject matter expert in every conversation, and I can clearly say that in this case, it's not necessarily going to be me. I have watched
Yeah.
a couple of his fights, and I think what's interesting to see is we see a lot of chatter, especially in this generation, about the goat. The goat. Fuck, I hate this goat chat.
Okay, so
John Jones is the
who do
greatest,
people throw out there at the
Well,
moment?
at the moment, Khabib's the hot topic. Obviously, everyone
Didn't he
loves
just
Khabib.
retire?
He did. That's when people retire is when you start having the GOAT conversation, right? Because
Oh,
he hasn't
okay.
lost a single fight, right?
Well, that's different in pro wrestling, man. Everybody calls himself the GOAT and all these motherfuckers
Yeah,
are still
but
wrestling.
there's a show component, right? But
Yeah.
I think when you look at Sakuraba, especially when so Khabib is 29-0. He hasn't lost a fight.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's why.
Didn't know that.
That's okay. Yeah, okay. This is an MMA show for it's joking. Sakuraba's record is not that. It's not that. But I guess what I'm trying to get at.
Oh, he has his fair share of losses.
That's what I
But
mean.
he's also got some incredible scalps that he's taken as a victory and some very, very successful names.
I'm going to look at Sherdog. I'm going to see what is his actual. So 26 wins and 17 losses. I mean, if a modern day fighter had that record, I guess what I'm getting is that's not a flash record, right? But the main thing here, relax, it's not a bash Sakuraba.
No, not at all.
The main thing is looking at his fights at a bigger picture. It was a lot more than just the actual fights themselves. It was the persona. It was the time in MMA. It was pride, and it was a symbol of hope for Japan, right? It was one person standing up with a particular ethos of fighting.
Yeah.
And mate, like, you look at him, he didn't look like, I mean, he wasn't an overly menacing sort of guy, right? He would just go and fucking armbar you.
Yeah.
Kimura you. Like, just do all these weird techniques. And you'd have to think that, that's when the Gracies and BJJ was popping. Like, to have this Asian dude, like, just chop these guys out. Like, it just didn't make sense, right?
Yeah, it came out of nowhere. So even he himself came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've watched the Fight Pass has some 2 cool specials on Sakuraba.
The UFC stuff is pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, so they put together these 2 specials, and they go back into his history where he did start off as a pro wrestler. So he did amateur wrestling in high school. He loved doing that.
Yep.
He was really good at it. He ended up in pro wrestling because he loved Tiger Mask. He's this iconic Japanese wrestling star. So he gets into pro wrestling, but in that era of pro wrestling in Japan as well, is that they had started a group where they wanted to present it like Pancrase, where it was it looked like shoot fighting.
What's Pancrase for people who do not?
So Pancrase was just another fight organization in the late 90s, and they would have one 30-minute round.
Yep.
And it was no punching.
Yep.
You had open fist strikes, and it was basically just another like shoot fighting.
Would you call that MMA though?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's where Bas Rutten fought. Ken Shamrock fought there. I think Frank Shamrock fought there as well. All the Japanese guys that were in there were really good. Masa Funaki and Suzuki, who ran it. Some names came through there, and it was the real deal too.
Sorry, did you say 35 minutes?
30 minutes, 1 round.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's another thing that actually boggles my mind.
Yeah, so like we don't have to discuss Pancrase again, but so at that time the Japanese culture was enamored with this style. So with the pro wrestling, they took catch wrestling and a lot of guys from the UWF gym who were like shoot fighters for real, and they presented it in pro wrestling fashion. And Sakuraba was one of those people.
Yep.
He was still really young at the time, so he gets into that and he starts falling in love with not just amateur wrestling now, shoot wrestling and catch wrestling and all that kind of stuff. So he starts learning submission wrestling from Billy Robinson, who was a famous, he's a white guy, he's not Asian.
Yep.
And he came over to Japan and started teaching these guys catch wrestling and submission stuff.
Yep.
So then he just naturally just falls into MMA.
Yep.
And then with no real aspirations of becoming a real fighter, he does, and he lights the world on fire.
Yeah.
And just by complete chance, his motivation was never that he wanted to
be famous or
be
anything.
a famous superstar
Yeah.
or come across like to the legendary status that he does have now.
Yeah.
But because he came from a pro wrestling background and he knew the theatrics and the entertainment that come with it,
Yeah.
I think that's what helped his persona.
Yeah.
Like he rose to popularity
Yep.
because of that, and people loved him for it.
There are a couple of things, I think, because a lot of people that, have just picked up the UFC and MMA recently, you hear about Sakuraba, you hear about the legend of, you hear like bloody Joe Rogan, every time he can mention that name, he's going to throw it out. So generally people are like typing in the name and sort of understanding. But people know Sakuraba as the Gracie Killer. And we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail, especially because, not that I'm...
it's what he's famous for.
Yeah,
technically.
it's what he's famous for, right? But you said submissions. You don't refer to it as like jiu-jitsu. Like, are they submissions that exist outside the jiu-jitsu world? Like, what are you talking about?
Well, I don't know because I don't do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Because his armbars are Brazilian jiu-jitsu, right? So it's not jiu-jitsu. Like,
yeah, but there's punching in karate. There's punching in boxing. A punch is a punch.
Yeah.
A submission is a submission.
Yeah.
I don't think it makes a difference. For example, he didn't study jiu-jitsu. He did Greco-Roman wrestling. He does amateur wrestling when he starts, and then he learns submission wrestling. But that's no gi.
Yeah.
So, I guess to answer your question, it's like, is it different from jiu-jitsu? Probably because you don't have the gi, and that element gets taken out of it. However, he ends up in Brazil many years later because he doesn't know he lost. I think it was after he lost to Vanderlei.
Yeah.
He was like, okay, well, I clearly don't know enough about jiu-jitsu. So he goes to Brazil to train at the Shoot Box Academy.
Yep.
And they give him a black belt.
Yep. What? Just give it to him.
In the gate, like, so, but this is when Sakuraba is now.
Yeah. Sakuraba.
Like, he's the man. So this is, a decade or so after he's already become famous. So he goes to the Shoot Box Academy and he asks for a gi because he needs one now to train.
Yep.
And they give him a black belt. And he's like, no, like a white belt is fine. I just need it because we're training.
Yep.
And then Cristiano, I don't remember his name, Cristiano something, the guy that was running shoot boxing at the time.
Yep.
He gives him a black belt and he's like, well, no, you deserve this black belt. You are Sakuraba. Like, you know all this stuff already.
Yeah.
So he didn't really learn jiu-jitsu, and he said that with BJJ, he understands there's a point system, but he wouldn't know the first thing about the rules or like what you do in BJJ because he's not a gi fighter.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Is it different? It could be.
Yeah.
You tell me. You and I should have a roll, and I'll bring the Greco-Roman wrestling, and you bring the BJJ skills.
Well, yeah, it's really interesting. We had a fight like that a couple of weeks ago in Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. I don't know if you heard, but there were two ex-teammates, and Burns
saucy.
is a X-degree black belt.
Okay.
And Usman's like made in Nigeria, Captain America, Black Panther, I know wrestling stud, right?
I've seen him a couple of times.
So you wanted to see which discipline was better, and like I had chats with my jiu-jitsu guys, and we agreed. Obviously, everything is there are multiple variables, but if you have a really good wrestler that can control, I don't know, I'm still learning. So every time I'm mounted or in the top control, it's abysmally hard to get out. I don't care how good your fucking ground game is. But anyway, digress. Back to Sakuraba. So forget about the nuances of that. He brought a certain sort of flair, and I think when you talk about Sakuraba, it's very hard to not talk about pride and what really pride meant to Japan at that period of time, right? So tell us a little bit more about that.
So pride comes into the mainstream in the mid 90s.
Yep.
Around the mid 90s, and it was right time, right place for Sakuraba because just by happenstance he becomes the Gracie hunter, but he becomes the Japanese superstar that they need at that time because it was a promotion in Japan. They're bringing in fighters from Europe, America, all over the world are fighting in Japan.
Yeah.
That's the only place at the time that the shows were happening until they eventually went to America. But what better thing to do than have a homegrown hero and then kind of represent the company? No, he didn't represent the company, but he became the face of somewhat. Yeah. Because he just lit the world on fire. Yeah. And because they had the money, we spoke about last year when wherever the money came from in Pride, wherever the money had come from, they had enough money to throw around for production. Yeah. And it wasn't just like how the UFC is now. The UFC still has a
good production value. Yeah.
Good production value, spectacular. But you weren't, especially at that time in the 90s, who the hell had that much money to like have these gigantic stages with these massive entrances and all that kind of stuff? And it just allowed him to have his creativity shine through as well. Yeah. So because he came from the wrestling background and theatrics were part of it, he's like, well, if I can get everybody else into it and get everybody hyped, well then, some of my job is already done because now most of it is the fight. That's where the hard work is put in. But get the asses in the seats. Yeah. Give the people a show. Yeah. And it worked.
So I think that's where he's wrestling, which is like pretty entertainment based background, really shone through with the entrances and the walkthroughs and really wanting to get people G'd up, right?
Yeah, man. So the funny thing is that the thing that's also appealing about him is that he just had this unorthodox style of fighting. Yeah. So when I came on here last year and I was talking to you about capoeira and talking about how MMA fighters are now starting to implement it, and the reason it works is because people don't know what the fuck it is, and you're not used to seeing it. Yeah. So Sakuraba would do these things in his fights, and he would just do Mongolian chops, or he'll do cartwheels, or he'll do like sliding, like side kicks, and like things that you don't expect. It was so unorthodox and unpredictable. Yeah. How do you? He's doing axe kicks to, I think it was Guy Metzger. I can't remember who it was, but he's like, how do you prepare for that? Fighting is always just like, okay, we're here. You and I are gonna throw punches and kicks. Someone's going to shoot for a takedown. There's a formulaic system to fighting. But if someone's like doing stuff that you don't predict, I think that's what made him exciting too.
Yeah. And this is not like a specific way the Japanese fighters were fighting. This was just him,
This
right?
was him.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a cheeky mofo,
Yeah.
and when he's got that cheeky smile on his face, you can't help. It's infectious. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
The protein water liquor is kicking in. But yeah, so
Jeez,
it gave entertainment value.
Yeah.
Like he was fighting one of the Gracies, and they were tied up in the corner on the floor, and he just started spanking him on the ass, and he's looking at the crowd, and he's like smiling and he's laughing. It's like he enjoys fighting.
Yeah.
Winning and losing, you know, people, you want to win when you get into, but it didn't matter to him. He never had a game plan. He said in interviews, he's like, I never had a goal in mind.
Yeah.
I never thought like get in there and do this and do that. He always said that they have to play my game. I want the fight to go down that I play my game. As soon as I play their game, that's when I lose. And he's admitted that.
Yep.
Whenever he lost, it was because he succumbed to their game.
Yep.
So as long as he can control the fight, like you see, he smokes cigarettes, he drinks, he doesn't, you know, he didn't look like Rampage at the time. He didn't look like, you know, he wasn't buff and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, he just enjoyed fighting and he knew his discipline and he was good at it.
So talk to us about the period entering the moniker Gracie Hunter, where he, you know, starts, challenging maybe the first Gracie. How did that even come about?
Well, the funny thing is like he never challenged anybody.
Yep.
The promoters, he said this in other interviews where he's like, the promoters would ask him, who do you want to fight? And he's like, he never asked to fight anybody. He would always tell the promoters, just give me the names you're thinking and like pick any of them. He never picked, he never chose.
Yeah.
So they had him fight the first Gracie and then he wins.
Yeah.
But it was by suspicious referee stoppage.
Yeah.
It wasn't rigged.
Yeah.
But he put, I think it was a Kimura. I think he put him in a Kimura, and then the referee just automatically just like called it. And you know, Sakuraba doesn't.
Homeboy didn't tap basically.
No, he didn't tap.
Yeah.
And then the Gracies start arguing because they're like, "The fuck are you doing?" Like he didn't tap, and especially at that time, like the Gracies were
around the joint,
hell bent on like, no, you don't give up.
Yep.
So that went down, and that kind of that didn't spark anything because it's like if you just fought a guy for the first time, you're just like, okay, whatever. Then the super duper infamous Pride 2000 Grand Prix happens, and he ends up in the second round fighting Hoyce.
Yep.
But I think they were on a mission at that time where it's like, even though Hoyce had to win his first fight and Sakuraba had to win his first fight,
they wanted them to meet, right?
I think they wanted that.
Yeah.
They wanted that somewhere along the line. And then Hoyce started making all these strange demands about
rule sets and stuff.
The rules and all that kind of stuff, and everybody knows that story. And then he fought with a gi, and then Sakuraba was like, well, if we're going to go these endless rounds until whenever, if we're going to fight for 5 hours, if you're going to fight in a gi, I'm going to fight in a diaper because like, I'm not going to have time to go to the toilet.
So he went to piss him off, basically.
And then like he's made jokes about, oh, well, if Hoyce wants to do this, well, I'm going to do that. And if Hoyce is going to say this, I'm going to say that. And then it just became a bit silly. So they end up fighting.
Yeah.
It's an hour and a half fight. They do 15-minute rounds. I think it was 6 15-minute rounds. And then Sakuraba just... I watched the whole thing. So after the last time I was here, I got so amped again because I had such a long break from watching old stuff that I really love. So after I pieced out last time, I went on like this 3-month binge of like digging up all my old DVDs. I bought more DVDs from the old generation. I bought UFC Undisputed 3 on PlayStation 3 because it had Pride mode. And like I just went diving back into everything and I loved it. And then I got the Pride 2000 Grand Prix DVD. That match comes on. And the funny thing is like an hour and a half is a long time, especially in a fight where, you know, there's action, but in an hour and a half, there's going to be a lot of just lull periods, and they're on the ground, not really doing anything. But by the time it ended, I was like, what the fuck? An hour and a half just went like that. Yeah. And it was still a very enjoyable fight. And Sakuraba's like trying to pull his gi over his head because he's trying to like ice hockey punch him and shit. He's trying to pull his pants down. It's not working. And he's trying to do all these things. And he's like, I wanted to get the gi like down over his shoulders. Yeah. because then he can't do anything, and then you can just like bomb him in the face.
Yeah,
but he couldn't.
So, might be a silly question because I don't know enough about Pride.
That's
but,
okay.
Surely there were other BJJ fighters.
Well,
not the Gracies at the time. What I mean is,
don't forget, at the late 90s, early 2000s, BJJ was around.
Yeah,
but
mainstream.
How far has martial arts come in the last 20 years?
Leaps and bounds. Yeah.
Leaps and bounds, right? And the education and the technique and the art itself has grown so much.
Yeah.
So it's not that it wasn't as good as it is now. It's just that the fighters everybody was a little bit different. 20 years ago, people were still like, he's a kickboxer.
Yeah.
He's a wrestler. He's the jiu-jitsu guy. Like it was a little bit different as it is now.
Yeah, I'm more interested in the wearing of the gi because that was a specific request on them.
It was one of their requests because he's like, we're a Gracie family.
Okay, so it was a representation of the brand and the whole the jiu-jitsu brand for them, right? Maybe because it just gives you an extra leverage point, which if you don't have that against, that's what gi fighting is. Like, so you have gi and no gi.
Yep.
Armbar with a gi is exactly the same as an armbar with a no gi. Same thing. The differences are the grips. You can do a lot. Like,
absolutely.
When you saw they was trying to choke him with the actual gi,
you
can't do that with no gi, obviously.
Yeah.
It's a slower, more methodical game, whereas a no gi game is a bit more MMA almost.
Well, I love no gi. Because I had a friend of mine, Brian. He does BJJ, and he for years kept hassling me. Come on, man, do a class. You're gonna be good at it. You're gonna be good at it. And I'm just like, probably not. Whatever. He finally coaxed me into doing it. I went to one class, and he's like, come early because they do no gi first.
Yep.
Then everybody comes for the regular class.
Yeah.
So I did no gi first, and I loved it because it just took me back to when I did Olympic wrestling as a teenager, and I'm used to that, and I still have it in me a little bit. Then
the scrambles and stuff would be the same, right?
But then I hurt my shoulder during the class, so I did some weird roll, and then like I couldn't even like lift my arm, and I had to have help taking my rashi off, and then so I couldn't do the gi class, but I was watching it, and whenever I watch BJJ, it doesn't make sense to me. It's that, and that's not. I'm not saying that in shit talking. I just mean like the way that I've been programmed for fighting or like grappling.
Yeah.
Sure, if I did 6 months of classes, okay, I get it now. It makes sense. But just me watching it, I don't understand it enough. It just doesn't make sense to me when I see it. But no gi is the way to go for me.
Yeah.
It's in my bones. But the funny thing is that when Hoist fought Sakuraba and he chose to wear the gi, in my mind, maybe I don't know enough about the situation because I'm not a BJJ fighter, but wouldn't that work against him?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, because now Sakuraba, you saw in one part, he was on the floor. Yeah. He grabbed him by the ass or by the belt, dipped him up, and just started bombing him in the face. It's like, what was Royce thinking?
So that's what I'm trying to understand. It had to be like they wanted to promote the brand of jiu-jitsu or them because the gi has their badges.
I would imagine it was, and they were all there. Like when you see Hoist's corner, like the dad was there, all the bros were there, everybody was there.
The bros were there.
There's how many of them are
the
there?
lads.
There's so many of them. Gracie party in effect. So yeah, he ends up just like not getting anywhere. Hoist.
Yeah.
After an hour and a half, Sakuraba tires him out, and they throw in the towel.
Yeah.
So now it's become a thing.
Yeah.
He's beaten 2 of them.
Yeah.
So then they throw another one at him.
Yeah.
And he beats him. Then they throw another one at him, and he beats him. So then he's the well-established Gracie Hunter. And I think that was at a time where it just shot him into superstardom.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at the names here. And, he
broke one of their arms. I always get them confused. I know who Hoist is,
so do I.
but with, like here, they're on the shirt. You can't see it, but I've got the Gracie Hunter t-shirt on. Hoist. Who's that? Hoyler. Who's that? Henzo.
Problem is all their freaking names.
And they all start with R's.
Yeah.
I looked them all up the other day, and there's like 20 of them, and they've all got R's as their first name. So that's why I get so confused with who was who. I just know Hoist off by heart. But then he ends up breaking one of their arms in the third fight. I think the third Gracie that he fought. Yeah. But that was but he didn't give up.
Tap.
He didn't tap. Didn't give up.
Yeah.
And Man, his
No.
arm, he just looked calm, cool,
Yeah.
and collected. When that elbow was popping out, and he's just sitting there, just like, it is what it is.
We can fight. We can fight.
We can still go. Man, Michael Bisping? No, it wasn't Michael Bisping. I remember like 10 years ago, it was Rich Franklin.
Yeah.
I think he knocked out Chuck Liddell
Yeah.
with a fucking broken arm. And
Oh.
his good arm, the one that he punches with, was the one that was broken, and he knocked him out with the less, what do you call it? The other arm.
Compromised arm.
His
whatever.
whatever. Yeah, the other arm. That's
Yeah.
impressive. So imagine if they did let him keep fighting and he beat Sakuraba. Then the Gracies would have had an argument. They would have been like, yeah, motherfucker, we fucking dropped you, even with my elbow sticking out. That would have been hilarious.
Mate, not off a Kimura, man. Like that's a pretty bad injury.
Oh, yeah, it was.
That's a pretty
It
bad
was ugly.
injury.
So he ends up... so people just know the big four. As seen on the T-shirt. He becomes the Gracie Hunter, beats 4 of them.
Yeah.
I don't know how much people know, but he ends up fighting Hoyce again.
Yep.
In 2007.
Yep.
In America. So in K1. Was it K1 Dynamite?
I'm trying to find
I
it.
think it was K1
Yeah,
Dynamite.
it is K1
Yeah.
Dynamite. Yeah.
So he fights Hoyce again. And they go the 3 rounds.
Yep.
And it goes to the judge's decision, and Hoyce wins.
Yep.
But it was a really, really uneventful fight.
What do you mean?
There was nothing that stood out in that fight. That it was, maybe because Sakuraba was older.
Yep.
Maybe he had nothing to prove. I don't know. He loves fighting. He's never not going to give 100%. But it's a very, very uneventful fight. And it was actually quite, there's nothing exciting about it. Hoyce wins, but then he fails the drug test. And they don't.
They don't reverse
They
it.
don't reverse the decision. And it's just...
What drugs? Like some sort of steroids?
Oh, probably it could have been anything. Who knows?
Yeah.
Some sort of... what do they call them? Performance enhancing.
Performance enhancing.
Protein, water, liquor.
That's it, man.
Yes. Yeah, so I don't know how many people know that he fought Hoyce again.
Yeah.
And he lost. But it still counts as a loss on his record, even though the decision got overturned.
There's a red here.
So then he fights his 5th Gracie in 2010. What was his name? I've got it written down here. Halleck?
Relic.
Halleck.
Relic, yeah. Relic.
So he fights Halleck Gracie in 2010. But now Sakuraba's like 41 or 42.
How is he still fighting at that
But
time?
Halleck was like 21 or 22.
Yeah, right.
So there's almost 20 years difference.
Yep.
And Sakuraba isn't as agile or as prone to attack more
Sure.
at that age.
Yep.
And, he's been plagued by many injuries. And it was a lot more exciting than the second Hoyce fight.
Yep.
But nothing really happens in the first round. Sakuraba tries to get the Kimura like he always does in every fight. Doesn't get anywhere with it. He's unsuccessful. Second round, he hits Halleck with he bombs him in the stomach a few times, and they look good. But then in the second round, Halleck just suplexes the shit out of Sakuraba, dumps him on his neck and his shoulders, and then from there just punches him in the fucking head so many times. And you can they have like the eagle eye view on the camera.
Yeah.
And Sakuraba just looks gassed. He is gassed. And he looks like he's hurting. And then in the third round, I guess they knew it's like Sakuraba's got to do something now. It's the third round.
Yeah.
He tries to push the fight a bit. Nothing really comes of it.
Yeah.
But then, same thing. Halleck just dominates for the rest of the round.
Yep.
And he gets his first official proper loss. And finally, the Gracies defeat him properly.
Yeah.
But this is like after his heyday, right?
Yeah.
But it still counts. But I don't know how many people know that too, that he fought a 5th Gracie and he lost.
Yeah. It's looking at this itinerary basically list. He's fought the who's who. So he's fought Vanderlei a couple of times, and
I think
this
2
is
or 3
Vanderlei in
times.
his heyday,
Oh,
right? I saw some of
Vanderlei
those.
knocked him the fuck out.
Okay.
Oh, scary knockout.
Vanderlei is an actual like loose unit. Like that.
He's a killer, man.
Those are one of those guys you call a loose unit because he will like take 3 knocks on the head to give you 1.
Yeah.
Like those are idiots. Like those are guys that are like shit. I do not want to fight guys like that because they have no self.
Have you seen him in
Self-
Ultimate Fighter?
Which else? Yeah.
Oh my
It was
god,
good.
so funny.
It's good fun, but by then, like
I
clearly,
don't like you.
by then, clearly the CTA has set in.
But Vanderlei, this is a good topic. So before when you mentioned something about wrestling being a base,
Yeah, wrestling is it's seen in MMA as the best base.
Yes.
to start
So Joe Rogan said it a bunch of times. I've heard him say it. I believe it too because I've done Olympic wrestling.
Yep.
Everybody says wrestling is a fantastic base for any MMA fighter.
Yep.
Sakuraba says the opposite, even though he is a wrestler.
Really?
He is a
So
amateur wrestler.
According to him, what's the best base?
He says it doesn't matter. He goes, it's up to the individual whether the individual is good at MMA or not.
Yeah.
Because then he uses Vanderlei as an example. And he goes, look at Vanderlei. Vanderlei didn't come from wrestling background.
Yeah.
He came from the Shoot Box Academy. He's not a wrestler, but look at how good he was and look at his the results speak for themselves. So it's that took me by surprise when I heard Sakuraba say that. I was just like, holy shit, like he disagrees.
Yeah.
He just thinks it's up to the individual.
Yeah.
So on that point too, he thinks that when he was the Gracie hunter, that was all luck. And he's
well, hold up. What makes you say that he thinks that specifically?
He says that it was complete luck because he elaborates and he goes, if we fought every day for a month, it's not going to be the same result. We're recording this now, but if we did this yesterday or tomorrow, it's going to turn out differently.
Sure.
So he just says that when he fought the Gracies, it just happened to go his way that day. And,
these Japanese guys are way too modest.
But man. to a point, it's like, look, time passed and he fought Hoist again. Yeah. Hoist won.
Sure.
Regardless of the drug test. Yeah. So it's kind of like, well, he does have a point. It's like, I guess it doesn't matter. You're either going to be good at it or not.
That's fair. I get what he's saying. And I think that's just like another thing embedded deeply with how certain nationalities, he's Japanese.
Yes, he's Japanese. Kazushi Sakuraba.
Yeah, all right. View martial arts. They just view it in a very different, like a noble way, like really different. Whereas these brash Americans, it's very different. Right?
One thing that I noticed is that because you watch all of his fights, they're all happening in Japan.
Yeah.
And the crowd is Japanese. So, and I'm used to the Japanese crowd being a pro wrestling, MMA. They treat the sports with respect in general.
Sure. Yeah.
Or they react differently to how we act when we go to sporting events, or martial arts, let's say.
Yeah.
So I'm just used to watching a Sakuraba fight with a Japanese crowd. Then the Hoist fight happened in America. Then the crowd just just starts booing and shit, and I'm just like, the fuck? I was like, what are they doing? I was like, we are just I think we're just a society that all have ADD. Because we don't have an attention span these days, or regardless whether that fight was in 2007 or not, but it's like they need action. We need action. Where it's like I'm been accustomed to watching Sakuraba's fights, where it's like, okay, there are periods where he's gonna lock on a Kimura, go to the ropes, sit there for a little bit. He's gonna buy some time. He's he's the IQ wrestler. He's thinking. He's doing things. He's trying to fight smart. Crowd's not booing. Because they know it's leading to something. He's doing something. He's thinking. The gears are turning.
Yeah.
But then as soon as he fought Hoist in America, the crowd's just like, boo! And then the fucking MC, the ring announcer, he's even on the microphone during the fight.
Yeah.
He's on the fucking microphone going, "How about these fans? I think all the fans are booing. They wanted some more action." It's just like, what the fuck? Like it just threw me off for a loop is all.
Yeah.
They didn't have the patience to.
Yeah. Well, patience is one thing. Education is the other.
Education's everything. I believe that.
In the sense that I think a lot of the Japanese fans, and Joe Rogan mentions this, and a lot of commentators, they're very knowledgeable about it.
Yeah.
I mean, now that I've done jiu-jitsu, I can tell what a mount is. I can tell what a half guard is. Yes. Oh, I know what's happening. Yeah. And I know that's the crescendo to the next.
Something.
Yeah.
Yes.
But if I don't know it, I'm like, that dude's humping that dude, bro. Like, what's happening here?
Yeah.
That's education.
Exactly.
Like, you actually don't understand it. And a lot of American guys, I mean, I'm sorry. Let's just call it Western fans, or let's just call it non-educated fans.
Western fans.
With even me to a degree, I'm here for the knockout, man. I'm here for the highlights. I'm here for that 20 seconds.
Let's not forget it's combat sports.
It's entertainment.
It's combat sports.
It's entertainment.
It's a bloodthirsty business.
Exactly.
You pay your hard-earned cash because you want to see some motherfucker end up in a stretcher, and it's to his detriment, not us. We're gonna go home okay.
This is true until you get into a ring and.
It's just the way humans are. Humans are just pieces of shit in general. I think we're like the rotten species on the planet. Anyways, so I also thought because his fighting style was so different.
Yeah.
I love that especially doing capoeira and knowing, like I said last time, how people don't know what it is. And if you implement it into MMA, it works because people still don't know what it is and they don't understand how, where it's coming from and all that kind of stuff. The attack is not seen coming.
Sure.
So Sakuraba would, like I said, he did all these things. He'd do his Mongolian chops. He was spanking on the ass. He was doing axe kicks and all that kind of stuff. He fought a guy called Vernon Tiger White. And Vernon Tiger White, I knew about him in about 2003 or 2002 because he fought in King of the Cage.
Yep.
That was another... Eddie Bravo did commentary for that promotion.
Yeah, right.
I only knew him from there. I don't know if Vernon White ever fought in UFC. I never looked it up. But he fought... I think that was Sakuraba's first Pride fight.
Yeah.
Pride 2 was against Vernon White, I think.
Yep.
Because Pride 3, he fought Carlos Newton. So he beats Vernon White with an armbar. But because he thinks differently and he attacks differently...
Yep.
An armbar is just like your arm is there, the legs are across it, and you just hyperextend it, right?
Yep.
Well, he's still got another arm here, and the other arm should be trying to break it or disrupting the process. I thought that this was brilliant. I don't know if it was by accident or on purpose, but now that Sakuraba has the armbar, his legs are across Vernon's body. He's using his ankles crossed to push down on his shoulder that's free. So he can't reach over. And I thought that was fucking genius.
Yeah.
And it was just something so subtle that you might not have picked up on or noticed, but I saw it and I'm just like, that's why he's the IQ wrestler.
Yeah.
Because he's thinking outside the box and he just thinks of all these different things. So there was another thing that he said in another interview where he's like, and I thought this was brilliant too. It's another IQ wrestler moment. He goes, nobody can be 100% conscious of their entire body at the same time.
Yep.
At one time. So, for example, this entire time that you and I have been sitting here, you probably haven't been thinking about your toes or your knees or, the back of your shoulder.
Yep.
You're not conscious of that. So he says when he fights, he tries to, he uses the analogy of like, if I grip both of your hands and then I start squeezing the right a little bit more, your focus and attention goes there.
Yep.
But now you're forgetting about the left.
Yeah.
So he likes to use that kind of analogy and implement it into his fighting. And I think that that's fucking brilliant too. So that's a good thing in capoeira.
Yeah.
So we used to get taught, if you want to look for a takedown or you want to look for like a leg sweep or something like that, the best way to do it is to implant it into the opponent's mind. And by doing so...
Meaning? What do you mean?
So if you want to do a leg sweep, let's say if you want to do a hashitera.
Yeah.
I will continuously do the kick that I want you to do so I can do the leg sweep.
Sure.
Because I'm going to plant it. Because there are moments in capoeira too where it's like the game is really short, but you expel a lot of energy really quickly. You need to have good cardio for capoeira.
Yeah.
So the games are short, but you can still do a lot of things in a very short amount of time. But because your time is short, time is of the essence.
Yeah.
So you know that towards the end of your game, someone's going to cut you out soon. So you need to make things happen.
Yeah.
So I start throwing these kicks and I want to hit you with a leg sweep. So if you're not giving it to me, I need to convince you. I need to use my IQ capoeista.
Yeah.
And then I will do the kick. Hopefully you get tired and your brain isn't thinking well anymore. Yep. You go into autopilot. You've seen me do that kick, so you do it too, and then I can get you with it. So I think that that's really smart. Saying it's like an IQ fight. It's fight psychology. Yeah. And Sakuraba's really good at it. Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Talk to us about the period after the Gracie hunting. Let's not talk about the last couple of ones, because looking at his record here, he does go on quite like a winning streak as well, right? I mean, there are a couple of losses thrown in there.
Yeah.
But what is that period of Sakuraba's career mostly known for?
He's still doing good at that time. So I think I went back and watched some of his fights from 2005. So he's still in his 30s, I think, and he's still doing well. He does fight a couple guys. There are a couple strange fights in there. So one of them is the Ken Shamrock fight.
I saw that. That's the one that I saw today.
Yeah. So you saw it? And it was a bunch of bullshit, right? The funny
random.
thing is that I actually feel sorry for poor old Kenny in that fight. He got a raw deal. I don't know. Sakuraba would not have known. I don't know if Ken had upset the office and they tried to. Well, 'cause then again, like
it was premature stoppage.
But what I mean is like we know that there was some suspicious activity around Pride. And people have made claims that some of the fights were rigged in the early history and stuff like that. But I would never, ever, ever bet in a million years that Sakuraba was ever corrupt or ever was a part of any of that. So I'm willing to bet that he knew nothing about this if it was a conspiracy against Ken.
Yeah.
But I know that Ken had ruffled some feathers in the past in plenty of places. So I don't know if it was someone had told the ref, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, whenever you get the opportunity, call the fight. I don't know. We don't know these things, but I do feel sorry for him. I was like, man, like But then, did you see his post-fight tantrum?
No. Oh, well.
It's fair. It's unfair for me to call it a tantrum, but he had every right in the world. I was more impressed that he didn't swear. He didn't swear once. I don't know if Ken's a good Christian boy or not, but he's just yelling and screaming as he should. He's pleading his case. Yeah. But he didn't swear. And I was like, man, if that was me, I'd be like, man, fuck these refs, fuck Pride, fuck this, fuck that. But no. And he never got a rematch. But yeah, so that was a strange fight. Still a win for Sakuraba.
Yep.
He fought, I think he was Korean. Is there a Korean dude's name there in that period of time? He beat him really quickly, like first round. I think he came from like Taekwondo or something like that. He wasn't a well-rounded fighter.
Yeah.
So he beats him. That's another easy win. Like it's really quick. But he does still do well in the early to mid 2000s.
Yeah.
It's only his last 5 fights.
So he's got 4 losses in a row after.
Yeah.
Zegalasic.
Yeah. But now, like I mentioned to you last year, he has Quintet with Josh Barnett, which is his fighting organization. And Quintet is really cool. This morning, I actually watched the first Quintet again from start to finish, and it's really good. So, like I said to you before, it is on Fight Pass. Yeah. It is enjoyable. And the reason I enjoy it so much is because it's no gi. Yeah. It's grappling. So it doesn't matter whether you do know jiu-jitsu, if you know wrestling, if you know catch wrestling. But it's
submission, right?
It's submission wrestling. And it's exciting. The reason it's exciting is because the action has to be there. The action, if there's no action, you get penalized. And because they've eliminated striking, there's no striking, no punching, no kicking. There's no gi. So you don't get stuck in these lull periods. And if the referee does see that the action's not going anywhere, they'll restart it. They'll stand you up. They'll do stuff like that. And
how long are the rounds?
5? 8 minutes. It's 8 minutes per fight. But if there is a weight, because it's open weight. Yeah. But if there is like
open weight, like no weight classes.
No. It's like, for example, like you go to BJJ class and they rotate.
That's not a necessity. I would not get in a competition with a guy with 15 kilos on me.
Well, they have instances of that. You have five people a team, and if there is a mismatch in weight, it's a 4-minute round.
It's team based.
It's team. It's 5-on-5.
Yeah. Okay.
They call it. What do they call it?
Not at the same time, right?
Kachinuki style, where it's like, 2 people start. So you have your team of 5, and like I said to you last time, it's like King of Fighters, where it's team based. So if you have 5 people, and then one guy loses, the next guy steps in, but he keeps fighting until he loses. So it's like you eliminate.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's so good, man. It's actually really enjoyable to watch.
Have you seen these? I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's Russia, somewhere in Europe. It's
like those stupid 5-on-5. Everyone's just running around.
They just go at it.
It's so stupid. And it's so stupid.
What you end up is like 5 guys kicking one guy.
Have you seen the ones where the dickheads are wearing like the superhero costumes? It's the same fucking thing.
I pay money for that shit.
There's like, but they bought like those spandex, like the Zentai spandex costumes, and like one cunt's dressed up as fucking Spider-Man, some other dickhead Superman. It's fucking
that shit's good. That shit's
fucking idiots.
It's entertaining.
Like, the entertainment's there, but it's meme based, right? It's like it's just for the internet bullshit. Oh, fucking hell. Yeah, that's so stupid, man. Or how about those other things where the dickheads have they're strapped with their hands gripped and they got to fight like fucking. It's like it's going to be an arm wrestling contest, but they fucking duct tape their hands together so you and I are across the table from each other, and they fucking fight each other. And then some guy tries to do a fucking flying armbar across the table. It's like a bar stool. It's the internet.
The internet. There's some weird shit.
There's always someone out there willing to prostitute something. And, pro wrestling has been prostituted. MMA has now been prostituted too. Oh, for fuck's sake.
Oh, mate.
So anyways, back to traditional martial arts.
That's it.
Yeah, Quintet is really cool, man, and I really enjoy it. So like I said, regular BJJ kind of doesn't make sense to me when I watch it.
Yep.
Perhaps I just need to dedicate more time to appreciating it a little bit more. But in watching Quintet, I'm like, yeah, this is for me.
Yeah,
this is for me. It's very enjoyable, and I think you could pick it up and enjoy it too.
Okay, hold up. You like the submissions though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
just wrestling. I actually I come from a wrestling background, Olympic wrestling.
Yeah.
And I still love it. So that's why when my friend Brian kept telling me to come to a BJJ class, he's like, man, like you're doing okay for a first class. I'm like, well, like, I still have like a little bit of training in my bones.
Yeah, yeah.
I still know how to wrestle.
Yeah.
But of course, like by no means am I not even considered a white belt yet.
No, you're,
but
as soon as you just...
But I enjoyed it and I really like it. And you know what? I probably should do it again. But yeah, so I can watch Quintet and be like, yeah, this is good. And Sakuraba has some really good matches.
So he still practices?
Sorry.
Is he a coach?
Sorry, we got off topic before. But when you said he doesn't fight anymore, you said it's like his last 4 fights he lost. Now he in the very first Quintet opening video, he's like, all the hype videos when they were getting ready to launch. Yeah. He's like, I love fighting. I still love competing. And he's laughing and he's smiling when he says it. So he still loves doing that stuff. He's so active. He does pro wrestling now. He's always in pro wrestling. Yeah. One half of the GHC heavyweight tag team champions in Sugita-gun. Yeah. So I've seen him do pro wrestling too. When I was living in Japan, I would see him do pro wrestling all the time. He used to come and go. Yeah. He going back to the Gracie thing, I just remembered. Yeah. So they brought in, when he was doing pro wrestling, he was in a company called New Japan. New Japan brought in some other Gracies. Daniel Gracie and some other guy had another name that started with an R, but I didn't know how to pronounce it. Yeah. And the two of them came in and Daniel was challenging a guy called Shinsuke Nakamura because he beat him for real when Nakamura had done some MMA in his early years. And they turned it into a wrestling storyline where Daniel shows up and Nakamura is now like the king of pro wrestling in Japan. And he's like, Nakamura, remember me? I beat you before. Now I'm going to fucking beat you again. He calls him out in pro wrestling. And then Sakuraba jumps in. Yeah. Because Daniel Gracie had one of his relatives with him. I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, but Sakuraba steps in and he's like, all right, Nakamura, if you're going to fight the Gracies, I know a thing or two about the Gracies. I'll be on your team. So he ends up fighting more Gracies in a pro wrestling setting. Yeah, right. And I think Sakuraba lost. He tapped out to one of the Gracies in New Japan. Yeah. But then that set up, because like pro wrestling is like give and take. When they bring in, like I said to you last time, when real fighters will go to wrestling and wrestlers will go to fighting, the real fighters come in and lose to the pro wrestlers because it makes the pro wrestlers look a little bit better to their market. Yeah, yeah. It's good business. It's all business. Yeah. So the Gracie, I think it was Daniel beats Sakuraba, and then they have a match, like a blow-off match, like to end the storyline. Yeah. And I think Nakamura and Sakuraba beat the Gracies again. So like we can say that there are some Gracies on that list that need to be added. Daniel Gracie and the other dude. So
how many Gracies are there?
There is god damn, man. I looked him up the other day and I was like, God
Kron
damn.
Gracie.
So many of them.
He's like a
Yeah, so anyways, Sakuraba, he's still active. Yeah. He's always teaching guys, and he has his own YouTube channel, and he's teaching little techniques and stuff like that with the guys that he trains with and the dojo that he trains with. Like I said, he still does pro wrestling, and he does Quintet. Quintet did have to stop, like everything else did last year with the pandemic, but yeah, he's still out there, and he's still the man. He's still the man, and he's still got his sense of humor. I love him.
Awesome, man. Look, when all is said and done, I mean, his ultra competitive career is done. What's the legacy of Sakuraba, you reckon?
I think it was Mauro Ranallo that said he is the GOAT.
The GOAT, come on, man.
Of Japanese fighting.
All right, okay.
Like he's, I don't know if you call him the godfather of Japanese MMA or whatever, but so I think it's apropos that one of the UFC Fight Pass specials is the Pioneer series. So they have one on Bus Ridden. So maybe next time we can talk about Bus. Yeah. There's a UFC Pioneer episode on Sakuraba. And I just think that's a really apropos title because I think he is a pioneer. Yep. So he only had 2 UFC fights. Yep. His entire career was outside of UFC. but he's in the UFC Hall of Fame for all the right reasons.
That's crazy.
Because he is a pioneer. So
Yeah.
I think in Japanese fighting, Japanese martial arts, he has to be the GOAT.
Yeah.
He has to be.
Yep.
The amount of eyeballs that he put on the product and brought to the table, like, you know, asses that he put in the seats.
Yeah.
He has to be the GOAT. He's the Japanese GOAT of martial arts.
Crazy, mate.
No argument.
Sakuraba.
Yeah. Let me check my notes. Let me see if I left anything out here. I love that guy. No, covered that. I think we'll do. Oh, I'll leave. Yeah, perfect. There's one last thing. So I looked up quotes.
Yep.
Just in general. I'm like, I wonder if there's anything that I can
Yep.
bring up. And there's one quote completely out of context. I don't know why he said it,
Yep.
who he said it to, or what it was in regards to. And I'll only give my opinion on what I think it means.
Yep.
But he has a quote where he says, "You should study Pokemon to get stronger." It's an official quote from Kazushi Sakuraba.
Pertaining to what?
I don't know what it pertains to, but in my opinion,
Yep.
because I have been playing Pokemon recently, what do you do when you play Pokemon? You train the little bastard, you level him up.
Why's it gotta be little?
He's gonna evolve. He's gonna get stronger. Motherfucker's gonna win you some gym badges, aka championships.
Yeah.
So I think, in my opinion, what he was trying to say to whoever this person was like, go train some more. But I thought that was fucking hilarious. It's just a quote. You should study Pokemon to get stronger.
That's it, man. What version though? Blue? Gold?
Blue version.
Yeah.
Blue version.
I
all the
started
way.
with blue. Awesome, mate. Well, it was great to have this chat, dude.
Yeah, Sakuraba's the man.
Let's get Sakuraba. Mate, Sakuraba, we know you're watching, man. We know you're watching here. Like, let's get you on the show.
Quintet, roll with Kev over here and put that motherfucker to sleep.
It won't be very hard, mate.
Yo.